Another movie review for you. This is A Cold Wind in August, and it was released in 1961 in black and white. Directed by Alexander Singer, screenplay by Burton Wall, and it's inspired from a novel, from his novel, in fact. In the cast, Laura Albright is Iris Hartford. Scott Marlowe plays Vito Pellegrino, and he's supposed to be about 17 years old. Joe DeSantos is Papa Pellegrino. He's a superintendent of a block of flats where Lola has a flat. Clark Gordon is an interested male. He plays Harry, an interested male in Iris, that is. She's a woman in, I suppose, early 30s. Janet Brant plays Shirley. Skip Young is Al, another interested male in Iris. And we've got Anne Atmar, who's part of Vito's peer group. Her character name is Carol. Lovely, that aircraft going overhead, isn't it? The military here down here love wasting money. And then we've got Jana Taylor as Alice, D.G. Green as Marion. They're both in that peer group, and so that's what we've got. It's very much a movie that I found surprisingly gripping, and I'm going to go into the details now. Better than average B movie, I think. A woman, Iris, probably around 30, lives in an apartment on her own, but she's previously been employed as a stripper at a club, and she's taken some time out. Maybe she's quit, but she's certainly not missing it. She's approached by a club owner to work again as a hostess for a week to help him out of a staff shortage. Very reluctant she is, as she wants to move on from this lifestyle and the men that this sort of patronage attracts, the users and the sexually inadequate. And this leaves her life very unfulfilled. Her fortunes change before making a decision on this when Vito appears to deal with a faulty air conditioner in her flat. He's 17 years old, he's extremely handsome, and he solves the problem very quickly and easily. He's a little bit like an Italian stallion, and Iris is attracted to him. The magnetism that attracts her to the boy is quite blatant. She's very attentive, and he's initially shy and reticent. But he finishes the job on a second visit, and then she's decked out with perfume and sexually cloven, and drinks follow after he's finished his work, and the temptation we see inevitably leads to a physical relationship. This relationship begins, so his interaction with his peer group is somewhat stifled, as he wants to keep this somewhat to himself, and he also becomes very cocksure with the girls in the age group, hard to get, and he flirts with them, but he basically plays them along, and so he loses some credibility here, as the girls in his peer group are, of course, very attracted to him and almost standing in line to become his boyfriend. We see very vividly how adolescents behave, and it's in sharp contrast to Vito when he's with Iris. But it certainly reminded me of the ups and downs of trying to make those early contacts with young girls as I hit sort of 15 and 16. She's got a sort of almost a gigolo status, and they do end up in a physical relationship. We have a sneak peek of a naked body, but the censorship was still pretty strong back in 61. Although it's very risque for its time. The emotional level of both Iris and Vito is radically different. Vito is besotted by Iris, of course, and she feels physically satisfied, which she hadn't in the past. But they're coming from different positions, and it's almost like a honeymoon period that they're experiencing. Iris tends to move on to mothering Vito, and this breeds some sort of resentment in the young boy. And Iris calls a time out with a weekend away from him, with an old flame. However, for Iris, it's a bit of a disaster because she's constantly thinking about the young man Vito. And at the end of the weekend, she gravitates back to him. But he's moved on. He's moved on to his peer group. This short attention span, of course. He then seeks his father's advice because it's troubling him how to sort of move on from this brief fling with this older woman. And it's interesting, I found the scene with the father offering the advice very, very powerful. The father, of course, gives some advice on handling attraction to a woman, taking your time, shopping around a bit, and trying to put over to the boy that he must start to grow up and he can't reside as a young teenager forever. He needs to start behaving like a man rather than a young teacher. And I was very impressed. Anyway, Vito then back with Iris, and we see him being rather sort of distant the next time he comes across her, and he then goes in. He gets an inkling that she's back at work. He's not quite sure. He's heard a rumour that it's in a strip type bar, and he goes there and he finds out that she is a stripper. He then confronts her with this. He's absolutely outraged with it. This double standards, of course, and he confronts her and takes what he believes is the high moral ground. Her view on this is the same as with the rest of the men. It just reinforces the possessive, obsessional way that men assume that they can behave with women that they like. And it's totally disregarding her needs. And of course, she goes back to work to gain an income, and because, well, she's done with her time on her own. Finally, we have a closing dinner date between the two where a reconciliation takes place, which leads to a sort of amenable passing for both of them. I found it a very interesting movie. The performance by Albright, who I do recall in many TV drama series back in the early 60s, is excellent. And Marlowe's also impressive as the young Italian. So get to watch it. It's called A Cold Wind in August, directed by Alexander Singer and released in 1961.